Welcome everyone to our webinar on surviving a hard market with automated policy requoting, a very timely topic. And today presenting is Quandri's co-founder and president, Jamieson Fregeau. So without further ado, over to you, Jamieson.
Thanks, Tessa. Appreciate the warm introduction, and thank you everybody for joining. It's nice to see some familiar names in the audience here. I know this is something that we have spoken to a lot of people about informally, but we're excited to be talking about policy requoting here today in a more official manner. So we'll have lots of time for questions at the end, and I'm eager to hear from everybody. But without any further ado, I'm just going to jump into it. So as Tessa said, our title here is Surviving a Hard Market with Automated Policy Requoting. And this is a brand new development that Quandri we've been working on for the last number of months. And we're here to share today with a larger group of people. So what we want to focus on with today's time is a few things. We want to start high level and broad about the current state of the market as we see it. And then we want to introduce the topic of renewal intelligence, which is something everybody at Quandri we're pretty excited about and we've been working on for the last while. We want to specifically dive a little bit deeper into renewal intelligence and talk about policy requoting, and then show you a demo of what this is and how it works. And then, as I said, we'll have lots of time at the end of this for questions. So, current state of the market. At Quandri, we spend a lot of time talking to brokers, talking to agents across North America to understand where their pain points are. And overwhelmingly, what we hear from agents and from brokers is the following, is that right now we are in a hard market. It's tough out there. Is that a lot of client service is reactive, whereas agents and brokers would like to shift that to making it proactive. There's an overwhelming amount of manual processes that are required to properly run a brokerage or an agency or serve clients. It's hard to get talent, and it's hard to retain really good talent. There's not as many young people coming into the industry as people would like, and it makes it difficult. And as I think we all know, client demands are ever increasing. In a more digital world every day, clients are expecting faster service, better service, and to have optionality and to have advice at their fingertips. And as agents and brokers, it's your responsibility to be able to provide that to them. And we want to dig in a little bit deeper from the kind of macro trends we see in the industry to specifically the renewal process, and the renewal process on the personal line side, which is really what Quandri's bread and butter is, and why we exist, is to improve the experience of the personal lines renewal process. From our perspective, there are big problems in this key process for brokerages and agencies. It is very subjective and unstructured, essentially meaning that agents and brokers handle this process very differently from one another. And within an agency or a brokerage, they handle it quite different depending on who it is that's running or whose client it might be. It's highly manual. There's work going into portals, work understanding PDFs, understanding data within a BMS or an AMS. Requoting is involved. Sending communications to clients is involved. There's a lot of steps to this process. And overwhelmingly, it's reactive. That a lot of the best service gets given to clients who are deemed the squeaky wheel. And there's a lot of clients that go on untouched or not communicated with because they don't reach out themselves. And so largely the service provided is reactive. At Quandri, what we've made it our mission to do as a business is to help transform this process. What we have introduced, and we launched this at AppliedNet in September, about a month ago, is the concept of renewal intelligence, and Quandri being a renewal intelligence platform. What that means to us is the following. is taking a personal lines renewal process and making it data-driven, such that it isn't driven from a specific broker's preferences or whims of how they deal with their clients, but you can back it up with actual data of what clients to reach out to and how. As much of it is automated as possible, so that brokers and agents can spend their time on the most valuable work as opposed to the labor-intensive manual work. It's intelligent in that we aren't just providing pure and raw data, we're providing recommendations and intelligent understanding of policies and optionality. And potentially most important, it's proactive. One of the things we've really learned over the last year is that the key to the best renewal process is that it's proactive instead of reactive, and agents and brokers are enabled to reach out to clients as opposed to the other ways around. And so when we introduced the concept of renewal intelligence and how we want to transform the renewal process at Quandri, this leads to the following roadmap for us. It started with renewal reviews, and I know some of you in the audience are from the US today, and so in the US we call this policy checking, as it's more commonly known. And that's where we started. We started with the ability to understand a policy, what is on it, what might be missing from last year, and what a client might be eligible for in terms of discounts and coverages that are not on that policy. And we've done that in Canada, and we've released that in the US now as well. Where we see this leading is from having the ability to understand what's going on to a policy. The next step is to understand what that policy would cost in different markets. And that's policy requoting, and what we're going to dive into a lot today. So we think that one of the most important value props of a broker or an agent is to be able to provide optionality and to understand that this client is getting the best they can. And to do that, you need to be able to quote and understand what a policy costs at different markets. Where we'll go next is client communication. Brokers spend a lot of time taking the information from renewal reviews or policy checking, from requotes, and providing that to the client. And we think that there is a large segment of clients that would really value just getting that information in a well-formatted email and a well-formatted text with the information, and that they don't need more handholding than that, so that brokers and agents can spend their time on the top 20% of clients that do need face time and need to speak to a person. And this really is where we see Quandri going over the next year, over the next 2 years, is providing this functionality and this vision to brokers and agents across North America. So that's a high level of what we're looking at. But what we're here today to talk about is quoting more specifically, because this is the big exciting thing that we've been working on at Quandri for about the last 8 months or so. And I want to talk about why we focused on quoting. As I've said a few times, there's this really important concept of a reactive renewal process versus a proactive renewal process. And largely from our conversations with agents and brokers across North America, quoting is done largely reactively. And it's done reactively because it's a very time-consuming and manual process. It involves logging into different systems, taking data from one system to another and inputting it, just to get a lay of the land of where this policy sits. As such, it's only done on a very small percentage of a book. It's quite rare that an agency or brokerage is quoting more than 30% of their book, personal lines book, every year. And that leads to a lack of proactive policy optionality, is that clients may get optionality among carriers, but it's often done because they call in and ask for it as opposed to provided to them. And where this all kind of drives is cancellation and retention. And if clients are needing to call in to understand what other options exist, or they might not call in at all, they're a higher risk of canceling. And so over the last 2 years, since we've come out with renewal reviews and policy checking, we've been getting asked from brokers and agents of when are we going to do the next big thing in the renewal process, which is quoting. And I'm excited to be here to talk to you about what that looks like and to tell you that we've come out with this in Canada now. So, as I was saying, most policies don't get requoted. And we wanted to share some data that we've gathered from brokers and agents across North America on why policies do get quoted. So this differs, of course, from America to Canada because America is a little bit harder of a market than Canada right now. But on average, a policy is only getting requoted if there's a few things happening. There's a large premium increase. 15% is a little bit more applicable to Canada. This might be 20-25% in America. Or if there are major changes on the policy year over year. And of course, if a client requests. And what we found is that the average brokerage or agency is quoting about 30% of their book every year. What that leaves is a large gap of all of the other clients that are not being quoted. And these are clients that are not being provided optionality, that are not being offered competitive pricing, and are at a much higher risk of shopping around. So, what I'm excited to be here today to talk about is the introduction of Quandri's latest capability, policy requoting. Policy requoting is the evolution of the Quandri platform. And as I said, we started with renewal reviews or policy checking to understand a policy, and we're moving in the direction of being able to quote it. So I want to walk you through in detail how this actually works. This works in conjunction with policy checking and with renewal reviews. And so I'm going to walk through what that capability does first. It starts when the renewal downloads into the system. And we have a Quandri user that this renewal activity is assigned to. Quandri goes through the BMS, and we extract all sorts of data about that renewal from the BMS. And in Canada, we are downloading PDFs and deck pages and extracting data from the deck pages as well. We then run these through the Quandri intelligence engine, as we call it, which is essentially the internal tooling we have to understand what is on a policy, what is not on a policy, based on the specific carrier and region and client, what could be eligible or what could they be eligible for and don't have. And we take all of that information and we put it as a renewal summary directly in Epic. This goes into a note in Epic in the original renewal activity, and then either gets reassigned to a broker, closed, or it can trigger an additional activity. And that's our ability to segment a book of business based on what's in that policy. Is a client can flag, or a broker and agent can flag that we want to see specific policies that meet specific triggers, such as premium increases, missing coverages, et cetera, and have those be segmented and sent directly to their brokers or agents. How this is slightly different now is that what we're able to do is also provide the functionality and the ability to quote one of those policies. And so we're starting with this being triggered off a premium increase threshold. So you can say if a policy increases by 10% or 15% or 20%, that you want all of those policies to be quoted automatically and then provided to a broker. Policy requoting. How does it work? This, as I've mentioned before, is us launching policy requoting in Canada. I'm aware that we have some US audience members here, and so just a point of clarification, ARS is Applied Rating Services, and it is the comparative rating tool that brokers and agents on Applied Epic utilize in Canada. And so that's how we've built policy requoting out, is to leverage this tool. So if a policy hits a premium increase threshold, say at your brokerage, you configure that to be 15%, then all policies that hit that threshold will be requoted. I'm getting a message here to bring my camera down a little bit too. Thanks, Tessa. There, how's that? So if the premium threshold increase is hit, then we're going to trigger requoting. Requoting works right after renewals or right after policy checking, and it will go into the AMS or BMS and extract underwriting information right from Epic. This is in the policies table, through locations, coverages, additional coverages, underwriting information in Epic. It's then going to move over to ARS and launch ARS. What it will do is it will attempt to match and find that policy in ARS already. If it can't find it, then it will proceed with creating a new quote. But if it can, then it will leverage the information in that quote and use certain pieces of data within that quote to create a new quote. So if it finds it in ARS, it's going to copy and requote. Otherwise, it will create a new quote line. Regardless of those two paths that it goes through, it will update the now new quote ARS fields and generate a new quote. Once it's generated a quote, it's going to take that information and go back to Epic. It's going to update the original renewal activity with a quote summary highlighting the details of the quote. And it's going to attach the documents that the quote generates, that ARS generates, directly into that activity as well. And it will then reassign this to a broker or an agent to understand and dig deeper into. So that's a lot of information. What we would like to do is show this to you directly. I'm going to skip ahead to do that directly. So, as I said, policy requoting works in conjunction with renewal reviews or policy checking. It happens right after the renewal review happens. It's going to go into Epic and it's going to extract underwriting data from Epic. It's then going to log into ARS and attempt to find that client in ARS. If it finds them, it'll copy and requote. If not, it'll create a new quote line. And then it'll start updating the information of that quote. So here we are in ARS, and Quandri's policy requoting capability is updating the information of this quote with new renewal information. So it's updating the living area, square footage, year built, plumbing, heating, roofing, etc. It's adding any claims that exist. It's adding coverages that exist and their limits, and then it clicks quote and generates a quote. It's then going to understand what is on those quotes, download the information, and it's going to move back to Epic where it's going to create a quote summary. What this quote summary does is it highlights what the three best alternative options based on price are. So in this example, it's creating a quote on a Wawanisa, who's a carrier policy, and it's quoting with the three best options are intact, travelers, and economical, who all range on a different percentage increase or decrease on that premium amount. And the capability will highlight this in the activity note and then attach the detailed documents directly in Epic. And then reassign this to brokers. And at a high level, that is how policy requoting works. Ultimately, what we're trying to drive is that brokers and agents spend less of their time putting data into systems, potentially multiple systems, and digging through information to understand what is what. And they can spend more time having the right conversations with the right clients at the right time and really deliver on what the value proposition of a broker or an agent is. We think there are a lot of benefits of policy requoting. We've put a few down here. First is to save valuable time. Brokers and agents spend a lot of time digging through quoting, and we foresee the ability to repurpose a lot of this time of theirs so that they can spend more time proactively serving clients, understanding what is happening in quotes, and using that information as a springboard to determine what the next steps are. If they do that, they'll be able to prevent more clients from shopping around and ultimately increase client retention and increase client trust. We see brokers and agents really using this in two different ways. Is that we make it easy for brokers to determine what the next steps are that they should take. If none of the quotes that are produced are competitive with the current policy, then they don't need to spend 15 to 45 minutes digging through data to determine that that client is with the right carrier. On the other hand, if competitive quotes are generated, then all of the data is already in ARS for them. They have all of the quote sheets generated and attached into Epic, and they can determine exactly what and where they should place this client or consider placing this client to ensure they're getting the best option available. So I've alluded to the fact that we're in the process of launching this right now. And I want to talk to you and explain where this is at and how it works and how people can get their hands on it. We've started with a small group of innovative brokers in Canada to build this with, and they're listed here. We have Shill Insurance, Munn Insurance, McConville and McFarlane, Yield and Standard. These are some early customers of Quandri that have been asking for the ability to requote for a long period of time, and we've partnered together to be able to build this and understand what it looked like. We did this back in March is when we started it. We spent a lot of time digging into how requoting works, understanding what the pain points are, what the biggest challenges are, and if this is something we thought we would be able to do in the first place. We thought it was, and so we kicked it off with our research and development phase back in March. We've been building and testing with clients since, iteratively, and really kicked off client testing back in August. At AppliedNet this year, we officially launched our early adopters program for policy requoting and opened up our wait list for availability for Canadian customers. And we are kicking off implementations with new customers in January. We've already started to fill that with existing customers that are eager to get started and get started early. And so these implementation timelines are now starting to move into February. The way that we are building this as a product is that we've started with single location app. We'll be releasing auto in Q1, and then we'll be moving to multi-location hub in Q2. The reason we've done that is we wanted to start small get clients used to automated requoting, and get what we can into their hands sooner so they can start seeing value. This is Dwight Hepner, one of our partners in the innovation program, and this is what he had to say about policy requoting. Is that having the ability to proactively review policy data ahead of client conversations is huge. The time our brokers save is time that can be given to your clients, which turns into retention, which turns into referral. As I'm sure is not news to any of you, being able to spend more time with your clients proactively is a secret sauce to building better relationships and increasing trust with them, and ultimately building a better business. And so we've been working on this for a long time, and we're finally at the point where we're able to share this with more people and get more people involved and excited about this. So we know we have a lot of current customers that are on this webinar. If this is something you're interested in, you can reach out to your CSM and we can set up a conversation directly. If you're not currently a Quandri customer, pulling out your phone and taking a photo of this QR code or emailing us at sales@quandri.io is a good way to learn more information, and we can dig into what your process looks like and what and how policy requoting can fit in. This is an exciting step for us, not just because we get to deliver something that customers have been interested in for a long time, but it's a step in the direction of realizing our vision as a company about improving and transforming the personal lines renewal process. So I want to thank everybody a lot for joining us today. We've got time here at the end to answer some questions that have been rolling in. But thank you very much, and appreciate all your time on this.